Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 8th, 2023 Abington Finance Committee meeting. Tonight we have a handful of people here at Town Hall. We've got a couple of people, 3 or so people with us on Zoom. It's feeling like the old days of a few years ago,
right?
With Zoom people, and maybe we're in hybrid mode right now to go to the newer terms. Tonight we will be discussing the information, the state aid that we have recently gotten. We will discuss warrant articles. We'll review meeting minutes from our meetings on January 11th, 25th, and February 1st. We will, spoiler alert, there's no correspondence. We will do liaison reports, and we'll discuss details for our next meeting, which will be next Wednesday, March 15th.
With CPC?
With the CPC, and reviewing all recommendations on warrant articles, because we have to have those
Gotta get them posted.
done by, I think, the 17th or so, somewhere around there. 20th, maybe?
23rd.
23rd,
Yep.
okay. So we would actually have another week if we need to go back to anything, so that's good to know. Especially where budget's not done.
We're right down to the wire this year.
So,
Good thing we started when we did.
all right, so item number 1 on the agenda, discuss state aid numbers. Am I turning things over to Scott or Andrew?
I think we'll let Andrew jump in here. You did all the hard work.
Let me share my screen.
All right, so I know that we got numbers from the state, and they were sent out to the committee, so.
All right, so the governor's released the preliminary cherry sheet figures for all the municipalities. And previously, we were looking at a $1.8 million deficit in our budget, but with the new state aid figures, we are doing better by about $1 million. A lot of the money that's coming in is for Chapter 70, and we're also seeing a decent bump in unrestricted general government aid, which usually comes from lottery revenue. The state revenue figures look a little bit more than $1 million, but we're also seeing an increase in our state and county assessments. So net, it's about $1 million better.
So what specifically are these state and county assessments?
So what those are charges that the state assesses to all the municipalities for various programs. There's planning councils, mosquito control, a variety of other programs that the state runs that we are charged for. We also have to pay out charter tuition for students who live in the town but attend charter schools.
Yep.
I don't think I've ever asked this. How do they pick that? How do they pick that they want to attend a charter school?
I think it's just a decision they make. You have a right to make that decision, and I think you apply, and if there's availability, you can go. But that would
It's
definitely be.
Availability, and do they have, like, admissions requirements, things like that?
I would imagine some of them do. I think that's a Peter Schaefer question for sure. But, and then there's also in-district and out-of-district, I think.
Yep.
Makes a difference too.
Do you know what charter schools we have in district?
I don't know.
Definitely a school department night.
Definitely a Peter person. Paul, do you know?
I do not know.
Paul is often knowledgeable on such things.
Spent a little time on the school committee.
Little.
So, looking at the numbers that you have up on the screen, coming into getting the state numbers, we were at a virtual $1.8 million deficit. Department request, we're looking at about a $0.8 million deficit. Town manager, a little under a $200,000 deficit. Is that about where we stand right now?
Yep.
Yeah. So the other sheet that was distributed shows us how we get from the 800K down to the 200K. So the 800K, that represents everyone's wish list, and we start paring things down from there. We saved about 150K after hearing about our liability insurance. The increase is about 2% over prior year, and we were over budgeted by a little bit, so we're able to save some money there. We also moved the laptops out of the school department budget into the capital plan. We're taking some retirement offsets, and the Portuguese program was also cut, and all of those together.
But it wasn't cut, it was a proposed program,
Proposed, right.
so they were
Yeah.
just,
Cut,
it was
cut
their
out
wish
of the,
list.
cut out of the wish list.
Right.
Right.
Was that one, was that a foreign language program or an English language learner program?
I believe it was the English language learner program, but I would have to,
I know that,
again,
I know that
clarify that
Portuguese,
with them.
Portuguese or Brazilian Portuguese has been the biggest need for English
Yeah.
language learners in
And
the
it-
district.
I want to say that it's up to 12% of the population now.
Yeah,
So,
certainly increasing.
so, yeah, it's certainly one that it,
Makes sense to try to get in there at some point.
exactly, yeah, it's really important. That was a,
But we need to balance the budget. so.
unfortunately, yeah.
Could I just ask,
Yes.
I don't know,
You can ask.
it left my mind, can you, I have one, why
Was
would
it-
we move laptops to a capital plan?
Because it's a
Again,
capital
balancing the budget.
purchase.
We've had,
But it's not a capital, it's part of the budget, no?
No, that was a discussion we had earlier, it's like buying police cruisers. I mean, it's a capital item, it has a lifespan, a certain lifespan, and then it's replaceable. So, right now, it hasn't been in, they asked this year to put it in as a new item. It's not something that's been in there that we're taking out. They made a request to put it in this year, and my thought was, no, we should keep it in capital and make that decision annually, whether we actually need to replace every single computer at the tune of $200,000, or if there's a possibility that new technology will come up, or that, the computers will last longer. That being said, that they do still want to put it in their operating budget, and they want to work it in, but this isn't the year that we're going to do that.
yeah, so I think a meeting that you weren't here, we were discussing, like Scott said, this is along the lines of the cruisers, and we've had the discussion before about, do we try to work the cruisers into the operational budget? Do we keep spending for them out of capital and free cash? And it's definitely with the laptops, we did this one year with curriculum.
Materials?
Yeah, books, curriculum materials to try to, just to get the budget balanced. So it's one of those things that our preference, I think, would be to, if this is an every year recurring cost, to have it in the operational budget. But for this year, in order to try to get us to a balanced budget, Scott's moving it over to the capital plan.
So moving it over, does that, do we know if this is actually going to occur? Because I don't necessarily disagree, I don't necessarily agree that the cruises are equivalent to a laptop in today's educational environment.
When
Like
you,
it's
when
an
you say
essential
that,
tool, it's like a textbook.
it's a line item in the capital plan, and it will be in the warrant.
So there'll be two different articles. There'll be the article for the budget, there'll be an article for the capital plan.
Okay.
The town will be presented with both of those and will be able to vote yes or no on each of them. So if the town votes yes on the capital plan, then it will happen. If the
And-
town amends the capital plan on the floor of town meeting to take them out, or if the town amends the budget article on the floor of town meeting to move money around to put this into the operating budget, those are things that could potentially happen on the floor of town meeting. What we have seen in general over the last several years is when we lay out a balanced budget and a capital plan that we are fiscally responsible with and are spending appropriately. The town has approved both of them. So I think it's definitely on us to make sure that we're doing those two things.
I thought the capital plan, though, was for like large expenses that occurred every once in a while.
It's not always just large expenses, but it's more one-time expenses. There are, like I
Well,
said,
things
there
with
are
the shelf
things,
life.
there are things like the cruisers and things like that that come up either frequently or every year, that we will debate pretty much every year, whether it should be capital or should be part of the operational budget. It's much like we have the snow and ice removal
Yeah.
debate. So,
But, yeah, I mean, it's typically, it's equipment, and it's something that has a certain shelf life. Again, this is equipment in my mind.
yeah.
You know,
I
in a
mean,
perfect world, I would probably agree and say we could put it into the budget. This just isn't the year to do it.
And why is that?
Why is what?
Why wouldn't we want to put it in the budget?
Again, because we have that flexibility that, you know, if we put $200,000 in the school department budget for laptops, we'd lose any flexibility on our end to say, all right, well, we actually don't need $200,000 worth of laptops this year. We only need $150,000 worth of laptops. Or, you know what? It's a tight year for capital. Can you do with $150,000 for laptops so we can buy some new plow blades or something?
That's what I mean, why wouldn't we be able to do that in the budget?
Once it's in the budget, it's in the school department budget. It's at
So they have to spend the $200,000?
They have to do whatever they want with it. They don't come back to me.
We do review the individual lines of the budget, and we do go up and down on various things. So I do think there's, to Greg's point, I don't think putting $200,000 this year into the budget for laptops in the operational budget would mean that it's in there in perpetuity, but
But it is, and it does.
sometimes.
Well, that's what
not
they want
always,
to
so.
establish.
Yeah,
It
and that's
is
why
what
they want to do it,
establish,
and that's the purpose.
Like Paul, like you've said, Paul, in today's environment with technology, with learning, it's fiscally responsible for us to try to get it into the operational budget, because the need to cycle out old or breaking laptops with new laptops for newer students is going to be there every year. What that amount is might change from year to year, but the need is going to be there every year.
Yeah, my only concern with this is, because when they were presenting, I asked them a question about like, well, what if we cut your budget $300,000 in programs, but we're gonna earmark $200,000? Will $200,000 get spent for equipment? This is not necessarily. So it's kind of a shell game here. So that was my only concern, is like, if we're gonna make, the town's gonna make a commitment, say, yeah, we want you to put $200,000 in your operational budget every year. That's what we want it for. They don't have to do that. And they didn't commit to that.
No, and again, I mean, the school department's been great to work with. I have no reason to believe that they wouldn't do that, but, yeah, I mean, I'll have no control over it.
Right.
and-
No, they did say that night, though, that they, like, if we cut, maybe if we cut other programs by 300,000, then they may only spend 125,000 on laptops. It's like, but the intent was to fund the $200,000 for laptops, and they're not gonna make the commitment to do that. Would've been nice if they did, because that's,
Yeah, and again, in a perfect world, this would have been the year that, it would have been great, but we can fund it through our capital plan, and we can fund it through free cash, not borrowing for it. So we get them what they need, and, you know, and we'll continue to put it into the capital until we can get it into the budget.
So with that, do we want to detour very briefly away from
Well,
the
we should
list?
let him finish his
The
list.
list, well, I was going to say, do we want to detour briefly away from the list to touch quickly on free cash, because I believe free cash was certified and we had sent
Yes,
that information
free cash
out.
was certified. We can talk about that when we review the warrant. I
Okay.
think it's probably easier to do it then.
Sounds good. Let's continue with the list.
Continue
unless-
that.
Are we good with
you.
that discussion
Thank
now? Any, Barbara, Andrew, anybody online have questions or comments before we move on?
No, I'm good.
I actually have a quick question. So we're getting the total $800,000 deficit between what the departments are asking for and the town manager recommendation, correct?
I think it's actually about, I think if you're looking at this, it's about 600,000 right now between those two. It's 800,000 from what the departments are asking for to what would be balanced, to where revenues are, essentially.
We're getting it to 190?
Correct.
Well,
Yep.
so at this
Well,
point,
these-
at the end of where we are as it stands today with my recommendations, we're still 190,000 off. That we have to tighten our belts and make some more decisions.
Gotcha. So in terms of like, so the department asked, like, so the current 190, does that include the 60 that we were potentially going to spend on the assistant health coordinator?
Yes. that's
Yeah,
still
we
in-
did leave the assistant health coordinator in there. Matter of fact, if Andrew if you let him,
Keep going down
this
the
Andrew,
list.
go down the list, he'll tell you what the cuts are.
Yeah.
And
All the cuts are displayed on the screen right now. So anything else that's not mentioned is still in and is a potential for a cut.
Okay. And the figures that the deficit includes the police department being fully funded, even though we know that some of those positions probably aren't going to be picked up for this year, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
But we still don't have a contract with them?
Actually, we do. I'm expecting an MOA, hopefully by Thursday. And
Okay.
that contract will largely be funded within their budget.
Okay.
But it'll probably, it's only because they do have vacancies.
Okay. All right, so that's
It'll-
going to be a wash, then we can't,
We can't take money away from it, no. No,
Yeah, okay.
it's not, that won't work.
Yeah,
Okay, that
that's-
was all I had, thank you.
And that's one of those things that will lead to a healthy free cash number next year.
Well, maybe, it's a 3-year budget and increases,
Yeah.
or,
I mean, the positions that we aren't expecting to be filled this coming fiscal year
it could, yeah.
would lead to a healthy free cash number next year, but doesn't in and of itself help with balancing this budget specifically, because we don't want to take those positions out in case we do actually have the ability to fill them.
Because then we're going to need to anticipate them for the following year as well.
Exactly.
And he will, in the fall, probably be able to fill a couple of them anyways. I
Yeah.
think they have a new list coming out and stuff like that.
And obviously, if we take a position out from the police department this year, we could, in theory, put it back in next year, but it's always tricky. Like, if he suddenly got a rush of really good candidates,
Want to be able to
we
fill
would
it
want to be able to
spot.
actually fill them and fill the department to what we've deemed it should be at, so.
Did you just say we were
And
short?
it-
Did you just say we were short 190 grand? Couldn't we just take those computers and cut them in half and then we only short 90 grand?
No, we already.
We already took the
We already
computers
took the
out.
computers out.
The
That's
Oh, the
Computers are-
true.
computers are all completely, but then they're going into another thing.
They're going
They're
into-
getting paid for with free cash, not with.
Right, not the operational budget. Like Paul
So-
said, shell game.
Yeah, well, just so you know, the difference between that is,
That's why I said that. I couldn't
the
understand why I said
operational
that.
budget and what we use for our budgets for the departments and is off of revenue and
Yes.
off of continuing sources. Free cash is a one-time source.
Exactly.
So we don't use it to fund budget items, but we
Yeah.
do like to use it to pay for capital items, especially because then we don't have to borrow for capital items, we can pay as we go.
Yeah.
But we never would want to use the free cash,
And-
because it may not be there next year.
And we know the amount as, when we get it certified, we know the amount of free cash, so we know the amount that we have to spend over a variety of sources, capital being one of them. Snow and ice removal being another one, putting money into stabilization and OPEB and things like that being others. So we're able to go into looking at the list of potential capital items and say, okay, we have this amount of money that we can spend. Which things can actually make it into the article for capital this year? And so what we're saying is the laptops make it in this year. Greg?
So we have a $390,000 negative.
No,
We just moved $200,000 over here.
no. So if you look at the list that's up there, it's also on, I have it on my screen.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, you don't even have
We
to.
were, with the department requested, we were at 800,000, and then we're ticking off these various things. So liability insurance, Andrew said, came in less than what we were estimating it at. The school department takes out laptops, some retirement stuff, and a proposed ESL Portuguese, English language learner Portuguese position, which takes 316,000, 200 of which is the laptop.
Recording in progress.
Does that make sense?
Got it.
And then we're gonna go down the rest of what this list is that gets us from 800,000 to 190,000 deficit.
So the biggest question is, couldn't we start off the year with a set of rules that say, you guys have to live within this thing, so we're not doing this stuff? Or a lot of it? Like, for instance, we budgeted $650,000 for liability insurance, we have 150. Are we usually that far off?
No, so
No. So the number in the left-hand.
Sorry.
The number in the left-hand
350,
column
450, yeah.
is the savings, the number in the right-hand column is if you see here, the overall deficit
Yeah.
between revenues and expenses.
Yeah,
That's the number in the right-hand column
Yeah.
that we're looking at on the screen there. It starts at
In the negative,
799,966. The 150 is the difference between what we budgeted for liability insurance and what liability insurance has actually come in at. So we budgeted,
so how did we budget that bad?
not budgeted, we estimated.
How do we estimate that bad?
What are you referring to when you say estimate that bad?
I don't know. If we're over by
So Andrew,
So-
100,000.
this might help. What is
Yeah, that's a-
what is the actual number for liability
So,
insurance?
when we prepared the budget and went through all the departmental meetings, the number we had in there was $1 million. We cut that to 850,
Yeah,
so there's a savings of 150 that's showing up now.
got it.
And that
That's
100.
the 150 you see up there.
Yeah, that's the 150 you're seeing up here.
Yeah.
So we started with an 800K deficit. We're going to take 150 off that deficit, so now it's
Yeah,
650.
so what I'm saying is
So what
somewhat
what it
backwards, but-
was at the time that we started the budget process, we thought, we were estimating that we would need $1 million for liability
Right.
insurance. Based on the information that we have gleaned between then and now, we are now estimating that we will only need $850,000 for liability insurance. And
Got it.
I assume that's based on working with our
Right.
insurance, our insurer and company to figure out what the actual rates are. Because there's a lot of things like liability insurance, health insurance, that when we start the budget process, we're guessing at what the increase from last year will be.
Particularly this year was our first year with Maya, which is a
Yep.
new carrier. So, yeah, we had really no idea
Yeah.
where we were going to end up, and they didn't either. They
So
didn't
if
have
you-
any claims experience with us.
So if you look further down the page here, the second from the bottom, health insurance, we estimated 192,000 less than what we're actually gonna need, based on what the
Right.
numbers came in at.
Yeah,
So it's because we're guessing at what those numbers are at the start of the process, and as we get more information and more details, we get to a more accurate.
are we still self-insuring, or is that changed?
For health insurance, we're self-insured.
Yep.
But we're with a larger group now. So we actually did very well, as much as, 192,000 more isn't great, but only a 5.5% increase I think we all remember years when we were seeing 8 to 10%
8 to
increases.
15%.
Yeah, even higher.
increases.
So, yeah, we're still health-insured, self-insured, but we're with a different group, or with a group, which is nice. There's probably 5 or 6 other cities and towns that are with us now. So we did cut the groundskeeper position that DPW asked for. We cut the town planner position. We made our adjustments to our local receipts. And so as you can see, with,
What is the overlay increase for vet exemption?
All right,
that's
so.
a new warrant article that we're proposing.
Yeah. There are two things that go into that. Just backing up a little bit. Overlay is for taxes that we don't anticipate collecting. Usually that's
Okay.
abatements.
Yep.
There are two sources
I
for.
got it now.
There are two sources for this increase. One is the assessor's office was made aware of a couple new veterans exemptions that people are eligible for and now are trying to get. So we have to set aside more money for that. And also, we plan on rolling out a veterans work-off program,
Yep.
similar to the seniors one, and that is funded through overlay.
Okay.
So we have to increase that amount.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that that full amount would be used, right?
Right.
The full additional amount, but we have to set it aside.
So this question will be up Paul's alley. The Portuguese program, the DPW groundskeeper, the town planner being taken out of the budget, are we adjusting similarly the benefits lines that those positions would have potentially brought with them?
Indeed.
Indeed.
So I also sent out a lovely health insurance projection.
Okay.
Based on a conversation with our broker, we're looking at a 5.5% increase. Now, that's still not final, but we are able to at least roll forward our 23 rates into 24 rates and see what it would look like. Just starting with 23, if you take our current enrollment and multiply it by the costs that you see here, that arrives at a budget of about 6.7 million. The FY23 health insurance budget was about 7, so we should be saving some money into free cash thanks to that. Once we take the 5.5% increase and add in about 9 projected adds, the health insurance budget now blooms to 7.2 million, which is 200K over what we estimated.
So that's 0% deductible?
Yes.
Do we have to do that? Is it like a contractual thing?
Yeah, if we want to change that, it's going to be impact bargain throughout the universe.
Yep.
As far as projected ads go, based on the school wish list, they were adding 1.4 FTEs. It's 2. And then I figured we're going to add a couple police officers, the health coordinator, and then there's a little bit of an allowance in there for people who don't currently take benefits now. There's no guarantee that they're still not going to take it.
Right.
So I estimated 9 people, and I split it based on the distribution that we have. It's about 33% on the individual and 66% on the family.
Can I ask a question on the town planner? So wasn't the representation from the planning board essentially, if we don't have a town planner, we're gonna have to contract out those services to somebody else? So is that included in, if we remove that cost, are we anticipating the additional cost for vendor services?
We wouldn't, it wouldn't be as much as that 85,000 for, depending on what projects they want. But one of the things that we're looking at doing is increasing the hours of who we have on staff now And there may be some monies that we can do that with to increase her hours, but we would still end up using some monies, and most likely we would leverage our Recovery Plan Act monies this year for the certain projects that we want, which is some rezoning over on Route 18, maybe rezoning or new zoning ideas. For 123 and 18, I think there was some downtown initiatives, and we had already priced that out. It really wasn't huge money, so we would contract with a consultant. It's significantly less money to do that, and certainly we don't have to worry about those, 30 to 60% increases for that person for health insurance and other forever costs, so to speak. So yeah, the plan is, we will get those projects done. Some of them are already in the works. Again, we'll likely use Recovery Plan Act money this year. And then it all depends. It depends what they want next year. Sometimes, some of those projects, depending on what the nature is, if it has anything to do with affordable housing or if it has something to do with historic preservation, we can go to CPC for money for the projects. Old Colony Planning Council is there and they're available to us, and they don't typically have a large fee when they assist us. So there are avenues and ways that we can make sure that we get these projects done.
Okay, thank you. Just my 2 cents for what it's worth. I thought the town planner was going to bring more value, and I know that's something that you've wanted than the assistant health coordinator. I know it's a slightly, less. It's only about 60,000 for that position, but I was in support of the town planner, and if there's a position that's not currently on the books that I don't think we necessarily need to. If we had to bring on board one, I'd go with town planner. That's all.
Thanks, Andrew.
That was all I had.
Thank you.
So I think a good question, if we're looking at taking out town planner, groundskeeper, and one of the Portuguese positions, what new positions stayed in?
Well, that health coordinator, and again, there's grant money that is used to offset that, and certainly, and I had this conversation with Andrew earlier, and I've had it with this board, and, one of the big out-of-control costs that we have is our rubbish and waste hauling. And so just whatever we can do to start educational programs and getting people on board with, whether it's extra recycling, whether it's composting, finding ways to not create so much trash, whatever we can do to reduce our tonnage is certainly worth an attempt on our part. And again, like I said, there is grant money, and it's a position that, right now, the two folks that are in it, we have, we want to spend more time. We want somebody to be able to be down at the compost bin. We're trying to expand that operation as much as we can. And there's certain times a year where Lindsay just has to be out of the office. She does, she's a nurse, and she has to go visit people. She has to go to the senior center. So she's just not always there. So we need a body in there a lot. Somebody who can help with inspections would be great, and this just makes sense. So I think the other position, we were looking to increase the hours of someone who's in the assessor. So we have a part-time person in there now, and the assessor wanted to make that a full-time position. And I think we left that one in, right?
That's currently in.
And did they ever figure out the offset on that? Because we are paying a service now for that. So
Oh, yeah.
we basically
Patriot.
will be, if we increase somebody's hours, it's almost like we're doubling up on that cost. Did we address that? Did that get worked out?
I think she quoted $6,000 in saving on the contract, which doesn't pay for the position.
But we're terminating the contract after this year, correct? We're increasing the hours. I didn't think we needed the service out there, because otherwise it's like we're paying for the same thing.
I thought it was and I would say we should have her back. if you want to clarify it, but I believe it was just a reduction in the services, the amount of the services. I think we still need them to a certain extent, but I could be wrong about that.
Did we have whatever position we're talking about right now in 2018?
I wasn't here.
I don't believe so.
So why do we need it now? Again, I'm sorry, I just don't understand why we need it.
That'd be another, question for the assessor. Bring her back in to answer it, but she had, it's a part-time position now, and she says the workload warrants that position to be a full-time position.
Wow,
Yeah, that's awesome.
aggressive.
And I thought she also said she didn't want to lose the person.
She didn't want,
concerned about
yeah,
losing
but that, as much as I would hate to see her lose the person, she's valuable, and she does a really good job. Again, we have to discuss positions and not people and consider it that way. But yeah, she is, and she's very knowledgeable in the, whatever that software is that they use for tracking
Money.
the houses and the values and.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, it is important, the workload is there, but, yeah, I don't know what you had in 2018.
In the overall assessor's office, it's budget is $252,000.
It's not much.
Right.
The other positions that are still in are also not much. You have the transportation person over at the COA, that's still in, as well as a reference
But
library.
can I just make it, that's not a new position, that's been in the budget.
They're sort of shuffling things around.
Yeah.
They're doing-
Yeah.
But
Like,
I think is it increased, did we increase it? I don't even know if we
Not by
increased
much.
any
It
hours.
really isn't that
Yeah,
much.
It wasn't
Right.
like,
yeah.
and again, that's one that we really have to have that person there.
Right.
And-
Right.
And then I assume there were positions that the school has kept in the budget, new positions.
So I think it was more that they
I'm
were.
trying to remember.
Yeah, it was-
We talked with them and there were several.
Yeah.
There were positions that they
Positions
brought
and their-
on, and
Their
they're still
initial
being
list was
funded.
long, and then the list they came to us with, they had trimmed down, and I don't think it was just the one.
But there's some that are grant funded that we're
Right.
trying to get
Yeah.
into the budget, if I'm not mistaken.
Right,
So-
because they don't want to
I'm
hit
just-
that cliff.
Right.
I'm just trying to get all of us to a kind of a holistic understanding of, we're talking here at this point about 3 positions that were requested but are not going to be part of the budget. What else was there that was requested that is going to be part, and stuff like that.
What
Like to Andrew's point of, like, if we're picking and choosing between them, where's
What are the other ones? Yeah.
what are the other
Right.
ones? Where do we think is the most value to the town for this particular year and this particular budget? And long-term, obviously.
did you have you had more to go?
No, that was it.
That was it? So it was one other thing?
So we got the health coordinator, transportation over at the COA, groundskeeper was cut, reference librarian, planner was cut, and then the
What is a
assessor's position.
reference librarian?
Did we leave that in?
It's still in.
Yeah, so, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
We have 2, right? 2 librarians currently? I just
We have
know-
more than 2
Oh.
librarians. I'm trying to
yeah,
remember
there's-
exactly how many.
I
A
don't
reference,
know.
a reference librarian is a librarian that works to, I believe, work with surrounding communities and other institutions to help get the library patrons the things they need that the library itself does not have. And I might be a little bit off on that, but I'm pretty sure that that's what a reference librarian is.
But I hate to be this, but I need to make this clear. So we're saying that the Council of Aging position is a new position, even though it was in the budget last year. That's what I thought. Because if you're calling that a new position, then aren't the 5 patrolmen, 2 sergeants, 1 lieutenant, those are new positions? Because they were in the budget last year too. I just want to be fair to how we present this stuff to people, because, I mean, it's one position of the Council of Aging, and we're saying it's new. I don't consider it new.
Well, I mean, we're not, it's staying in. I don't see us cutting it. It's,
But it's the way it's being presented, though, as it's a new position like the assistant health coordinator. That's a new position that we didn't have before. Counseling, I just want to be fair to the counseling aging.
Well, it's not a new person, right? It's a person that's already in there, and they're just, I believe they're just doing more duties. But I don't believe it's I think it's more probably a new title or a different title for an existing person
All
in
right.
position.
Yeah,
Yeah, all right. I see your point.
Can we put a,
Calling up my document on the Council of Aging right now
We
to see if I can get some.
is there any way to put like more of these on the list
More,
of the positions that were not on the list? Can we make the list bigger?
Which list?
yeah.
The
More
list, the
specific.
list that we're cutting or the list that
Sorry.
we're keeping?
I'm trying to be as diplomatic as possible here, which I'm not.
You don't
good
have
at.
to be, just
I'm
tell me
not
what you
good.
want.
The reference librarian,
Yeah.
can we get rid of that?
Oh, you want to get rid of the,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, can we put more things on the list? Because I am looking at it, again, I don't know what we need, what we don't need, but it, at least on definitions here, it seems like maybe we don't, as far as I know, maybe we don't need it.
so we're going to go back and we're going to meet with department heads again. We obviously have a deficit that we're still trying to work out. So, yeah, those are the conversations we can have, and we certainly can bring anybody back
Yeah, so one of
next
the,
week and the following week to meet with you folks.
yep, one of the things that will be happening after the meeting tonight and continuing on is, as we do still have a deficit, Scott and Andrew will continue working to find the places that we can make that deficit go away. And I think, based on the discussions that we've had and like what Andrew L. is pointing out, I do think there was a kind of a general consensus from the committee that the town planner position is something that we, if we can fit in there, we would like to put priority on that one.
And I will tell you also that I have probably 3 other towns since the last time we talked are still finding it
Still-
impossible to
still
recruit
looking.
that position.
Yep,
But duly noted.
yep, so.
The reason I'm saying some of the things I am is that even like, say, the groundskeeper, the DPW has basically been at unless I'm wrong, but they've been at a specific head count for a while, no?
We added someone last year.
Yeah,
So.
We did add a position
How many
last
people are
year.
over there? 4 or
Oh, I think when he put up his graphic last
5?
week, he had like 16.
I don't recall.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't remember the difference between DPW and,
well, it's all one group.
That's
It's
what I mean.
DPW and highway and
yeah.
sewer, but it's one group. But I want to say he put up his chart. I mean, they are lower than the towns around. I would love to give him a groundskeeper. They're the workhorse of the town. I mean, every time you need something done,
That's what I mean, like,
he's the guy we go to.
but if all the other departments are growing by, I don't know, pick whatever number you want, by 30% over 20% over the last 5 years, and this particular one isn't, that, all I'm saying is, I don't know.
You mean about the surrounding town departments?
No, just
or
like all the
in-
other departments, like the school department or the library, I don't know,
Fire,
like
et
I'm
cetera.
making stuff up, fire,
Yeah.
police. If, obviously, police hasn't really grown or whatever, it's shrunk, but if the majority of other ones are growing,
I don't know, and I would have to take a look. I don't know when the last time they added people to the police. My guess is you haven't been adding people here before I got here, certainly not, and we haven't added a lot of positions since I've been here. We were able to get DPW last year, one person, and love to get him another one. But we have to, we could, for example, and I'm not suggesting that we do this, but if we were to cut the reference librarian, we still would be in a deficit.
yes, I
And if
understand.
we made
And-
something, if we talked to the school department and they said they had some other program or somebody was retiring, and they won't replace them, we'd still have a deficit. So that doesn't get us a DPW worker. And in my opinion, you know, we do need, and I think because of the issues that we have with our waste collection and the ever-increasing costs over there, we have to try and do something that'll help us.
In the health department
Yeah.
specifically. And I looked up, I just called back up the library department so that I could get information, so we're understanding here. The reference librarian position that they list in their projected budget is a part-time 17 and a half hour position, which would be approximately 21,500.
And then,
So not a huge help in getting us there if we did that, but also to note, the library's budget, unlike a lot of the other budgets in town, they have to hit specific numbers in specific areas to remain certified by the state and have state funding, so.
Percentage-wise, how much are we in a deficit right now? 190 grand to, what's the budget?
60 something.
66.
What's that number?
Small.
I know. I mean like percentage-wise.
that's why I got Andrew.
Bust out the calculator. You're doing it, but
So it's not even 1%.
yeah.
Yeah.
So can
We're
we-
almost there.
We just asked, we asked each place to cut their budget by 1% and just make this like the easiest thing in the entire world?
Maybe
Or
the
less than
conversation I
1%,
had.
0.003%?
But remember, when we started this process, we also said, you know,
It's a 0.3%.
both three. Be as flat as you can.
0.3.
Yeah.
Actually, I have one more exhibit that might be helpful. It's at the end
We like
of the
exhibits.
package that I sent you. And what this does, it looks a little bit scary, but it breaks out the year-over-year budgetary increases as they are and lets you see who's getting what this year.
There you go. Awesome.
So if you would like to cut something, this might be a good place to start.
So which column should we be looking at here?
Right, so if you want to see where the budgetary increases are, if you look at the columns that have the delta, or the triangle at the top of them, that shows you the change between 23 and 24.
Okay, so the three furthest to the right.
Correct. The bottom table also is Paul's request. I got to allocate those benefits
Yeah,
out.
Thank you, yeah.
It's based on a percentage of salary, which isn't perfect, but for this, it helps a little bit.
Right. Yeah, because between public safety and education, it's 78% of the budget, all in.
Yep.
Are you recommending we privatize education and public safety?
I did not say that.
This is, again, this is
So,
what we spent.
yeah, so these three columns
Yeah.
is the FY23 budget.
What column?
Paul recommends.
No.
Yeah, so do you see my mouse moving?
Yep.
So these three, FY23 budget.
Yep.
These ones, FY24 budget.
Oh, yep.
And these columns show you the difference between them.
Yep.
So if there are numbers in this column, that means there's an increase over the prior year.
Yep, got it, thanks. And when you say general government, it's the first time I've ever seen that in anything. What is general government? Unless I missed something in previous years.
That's town hall, basically.
Yeah, that's not the term we usually
Yeah, that's all.
use for it, but
Okay.
town hall and associated
Okay.
running of the town.
Right. Each department can be classified into these functions based on what they do. So police, fire, that's public safety. Town hall, as we mentioned, is general government. Public works is highway. Human services is the library and veterans.
Senior center.
Yep, senior center as well. Culture and recreation, that's DPW recreation as well as the library.
Government assessments.
Those are charges from the state that we have to pay, and there's no way we can get out of them.
The state charges us money?
Yes.
State gives us money, the state takes money.
That's the beauty of the cherry sheet, there's actually 2 tabs.
Right, there are 2 tabs.
Yep.
I can actually, well, we'll get into that later.
And benefits is just health insurance, life insurance.
Liability insurance,
Liability
as well as
insurance.
the pension.
Okay.
So that one's never gonna go down.
Right. Yes.
Correct.
So we don't even, I mean, we can't even put that one in this list, right? Because you can't.
And it goes in,
There's
it
nothing you
goes,
can even do.
it goes in the list, but it's not something
I got
that
you.
we're gonna,
There's
it's not something we're gonna get wiggle room to
And
balance
we
the
actually-
budget
I mean,
out
we
of. Sometimes we
did
do
recently
because of like
put it out to bid.
rates and things like
Yeah.
that, so.
But the best we did was flat, or
Yeah, yeah, I got you.
it's more of a less of an increase.
Exactly, it's how little can we hold the increase to?
5.5% in today's environment is an
Is-
amazing rate.
It really is, unfortunately.
And are we doing anything with the OPEB? Are we funding that at all in this budget? And is this an are we up for review on the actuarial?
I think, so we're finishing up the fiscal '22 audit.
Right.
That one is an in-between year. I think '23 is a full valuation year.
Oh, okay.
So once July rolls
Closes.
around, we'll be doing a full valuation.
Oh, okay, because it's every 2 years, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And that liability's $94 million as of June 30th, 2021.
It's easy. Figure it out.
In the debt service, what's the trend we're looking at there? Is that, at what point does it turn the other way, or?
So some debt has rolled off the books, but now we have to pay for the sewer force main, which is new. That is reimbursed by the sewer department, but you'll see an increase. This is offset by the enterprise reimbursement. That's included as general fund revenue because the sewer department pays for it. So you're seeing an increase, but it's pays for itself, so to say.
So then what's the true debt service number if the enterprise fund is paying off some of it?
I don't have that number today, but
Because that's like that number there is 8% of the budget.
most of that is for the school, but
Yeah, okay. Okay. So, right now, if we take that allocated benefits, 61% of the town's budget, pre-debt service, is going to the schools. And it would go up if we allocated the debt service then. And that's the question I've always, like from a, like, what's the town's, like, what's the priorities? And I'm not making any comments about what it should be, but it's like, what is Abington compared to other communities as far as, like, 61% of our budget at least goes to education. And we've got 17% to public safety. So I'm looking at that 61% from the bottom, the allocated benefits, that's where I get, because if you do it up above, it's like 47%. It goes up 14% when you include the benefits.
So I think that tells you what our priority as a town is, at least to an extent. But I think it would be interesting to see how our breakdown compares to surrounding
Right.
communities.
Right,
and
yeah.
which communities we want to model ourselves more like. So,
50 to 60%. Just quick Google search. I mean, I don't know.
what is, this is to Andrew and Scott. What is our confidence level that when we meet a week from tonight, the 190 will be 0?
We'll see.
I'd like to think so, but I know, I believe there's someone on vacation over at the school department, so, we won't be able to have any conversations with them until next week. And they'll probably take place right away Monday, Tuesday, but we can't really guarantee where we'll be with them. We'll meet with the other departments and see where they can and hopefully be able to tighten their belts.
By the way, do you have a cost per student?
That's a school
There is,
department
I don't have
Yeah,
it.
they're definitely.
It's probably
Yeah,
on the
there's a-
DLS website.
Yeah, it's on the DESI website,
Tessie.
yeah.
Just as a heads up, next Monday through Wednesday, I'll be attending the accounting school over in UMass Amherst. So it's
Yeah, forget it.
I actually had a revenue question based on the information that you sent. The FY22 actual for licenses and permits was almost double what we're estimating. Was there something specific in FY22 that caused that number to be significantly higher, or?
I mean, the housing market was pretty crazy. I think that's what caused a lot of that. The local receipts estimates could be rebalanced a little bit better based on how the numbers look now. But to answer your question, it's probably just economic growth.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Because
one of the.
I'm only asking because we don't have on here at least, we don't see the numbers for prior to FY22. Like if FY21 or FY20 were 200,000.
Right, so the thing about...
The estimate makes a lot more sense. If those are like 450, 460, 489, then that certainly provides a different, tells a different story.
The water issue is a serious concern as far as permitting goes though right now.
The other thing is that historical, local receipts are kind of sensitive to the overall economy.
Yes.
So you could look at a historical trend, but if the economy takes a dip, all of that just disappears.
Yeah.
People not buying cars, that means excise tax goes down.
goes down. I do think we've seen over the last 2 to 3 years, the economy has dipped. So we're hoping the economy will rebound.
I mean, that would be great.
We certainly cannot budget based on the hope that the economy will rebound.
Right.
So,
That's why we're conservatively estimating.
yeah. And we definitely appreciate the conservative estimations and working with that. I just,
The estimates that
when
you...
we're
sorry.
getting down to 2 to 3 weeks to go before and brass tacks time, to use the idiom. Want to look at everything that we can look at.
If I did my math correctly, these the estimates for 24 are about 92% over 22, which is a nice cushion. If it comes down to it, we can go a little bit higher, but hesitant to do that.
We don't want to go too high.
Yeah.
So. Anyone else have questions for item 1 on our agenda, going over the state aid numbers.
But I guess I'm trying to, like, procedurally here. So we've got a police budget where we've got almost $700,000 in positions. We don't want to cut the police. But we've got a revenue line there that 2 years ago was $489,000 in licenses and fees. We bumped that up $200,000. It's $450. We got a balanced budget. We didn't cut the police. Because the thing I struggle with,
And that's part of why I was asking about it, but to me, it's predicated on if there is a very reasonable belief that we will actually take in $450,000 there.
so let me ask you this, though.
And that-
Is
but
it
that was why I
very
was
reasonable
asking
that we're
about-
going to spend that $680,000 on those officers? If it's not, then why is it in the budget?
Well-
Why are we cutting other things when we know we're not going to spend that? But we do have a record of saying we collected $489,000. So let's go to.
So I will say from my, and this may not be everyone across the board, but from my personal preference, I would rather err on the side of estimating lower revenues than err on the side of estimating higher expenses, if that makes sense. Like, I wouldn't want to estimate higher revenues and not bring in that money, because that puts us in a bind as we get to the end of the year and actually paying our bills and keeping our budget balanced and stuff. I do very much understand your point on the officers positions that we may not be able to fill. Do we take a position or two out for a year and put them back in if we have a confident, realistic estimation that they're not going to be filled this year for sure?
Right.
Does it make sense to try to get the budget balanced, to say we take those out and we put them back next year? I know the department won't want to take them out, but I know the school department probably doesn't want to take the laptops out and put them into the capital plan either. So these are the push and pull and the give and take of trying to get this balance.
But now you brought that back up. But if we put it in the capital plan, they have to spend that $200,000 on laptops. They can't do anything with it other than that, correct?
Correct.
So we may want to just, because otherwise.
It can only be spent on.
Yeah.
On the technology, or however it's worded in the warrant article. It can be spent on that, and if it's not spent on that, then it goes back to.
Okay.
Or if it's not spent on that, actually, so here's a question, Scott. Because it's in the capital plan as a whole, does it have to be spent on the individual item it is lined out?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like it's, the capital plan is passed and we can shuffle money between items in the capital plan?
No.
Okay. That's what I thought, I just wanted to clarify before.
It for the stated
Saying it.
and voted purpose.
Yep.
Okay.
So either they would have to spend that money on laptops, or town meeting would then have to reallocate what we can spend that money on.
Okay.
And just going back a few years, permits and licenses were like 280, 250. You know, so I think we
Yeah,
had
so I was
probably
wondering,
a year.
if 22 was an outlier.
Yeah,
So,
probably somebody did a subdivision and,
Yeah,
you know, a lot of houses were, and it was obviously a banner year for housing,
yeah.
so I wouldn't,
So it makes sense to estimate it lower.
yeah.
Do we have to fund positions for the full year? For example, police positions that we're not confident we'll be able to fill, at least not right away. Can we
Yeah, because we,
Fund 6
yeah,
months
so
of a
that we're
position.
hiring 6 months in?
I mean, you can't, and especially in the police, right now, a good amount of that current budget is going to get eaten up by their new contract. That's, as it stands right now, that contract, to get them on par with other communities, provides enough incentives, educational incentives, shift differentials, things that the everybody around us has, and it's creating this problem with being able to actually recruit
And retain.
and retain. We just had another officer who left to go to the state police. This new contract, assuming that we make our agreement, largely will be funded through what's in the existing plan for their budget. They, so they probably won't even be able to fill all those positions just because of the contract's gonna.
So they won't be able to fill all the positions, but essentially the money that would go to the positions that are not filled will instead go to the increases in the overall funding of the department salary
Correct.
structure because of the collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah.
So not really a place that we can take from to balance the budget.
It won't help.
But is it really appropriate then to have 5 patrolmen, 2 sergeants, and a lieutenant being put in the budget when we're not going, like, what is,
It is because we don't have an agreement yet. So, yeah, we just carried what we've carried over.
no, but I'm saying the intent of that salary budget isn't for those positions, it's really to cover everything above that's already being.
Well, because it's not something that's in place, the intent of it is, and has been, and that's been carried over for those positions, they just haven't been able to fill them. Had they been able to fill them, we'd be having a different conversation on that deficit amount.
Right, but what I'm hearing you just saying about this new agreement that we have in place, if everything lined up, we wouldn't be able to hire all them because we don't have enough in the budget.
That's probably likely to be the case.
Okay. So it's really not, we can't fund
Can't
5.
cut.
We
No,
can't,
We're not likely to be able to fund, I think there's 7 open positions. We're not likely to be able to fill 7 open positions.
but we still.
Likely be able to fill some of them. but
At
not-
least a few of them, yeah.
Not all of them.
Yeah, definitely not all.
And it could be because we don't have the funding for it, not because we don't have the people for it.
Now it'll be, yeah, this year, the next current, the year that this will fund, that first year, it will be more of a funding issue.
Okay.
Although, there's no guarantee that,
Yeah, we
it's
don't
still not
know-
a popular job.
Yeah, we don't know,
Even though it's paying
we
well.
don't know what the
Yeah.
people part of it will be.
There's still there's overall recruitment issue everywhere. But I think this will certainly help with quality candidates.
So if we have an agreement in place, don't we have to go, that chart with all the salaries, don't we have to go back and adjust that to say, this is, because it feels like that's not.
We don't have an agreement in place, that's
Oh.
why.
So I think essentially when we do have the agreement in place, we will have a better idea of both what the overall cost for the existing positions in the budget will be and what adjustments might need to be made in the FY '25 budget and beyond to properly fund the positions that we do have and the positions that we are able to fill. Is that
Yeah,
accurate?
it's,
And we're certainly hopeful that the new agreement will help with recruiting and retention. We're also certainly hopeful that we'll have the funds to pay for recruiting and retention.
well, at the very least, we want to make sure we don't lose anybody else.
Right.
That's for sure. And we want to be,
Yes.
not just to be competitive, but we want to be fair. We want to make sure that we're treating all of our employees fairly and paying them fairly.
And they're getting paid less total money than other towns,
Yeah.
total money. Like literally what ends up being in their paycheck, not salary, not what, all of it rolled into one, it's less than all the other towns.
Yeah.
And we're positive on that?
Well, if you
'Cause
work,
I-
if you work and do 40 hours of overtime, you'll probably make more than somebody who doesn't do 40 hours of overtime in the next town over. But the wage scale, the hourly scale, the educational incentives are less than in other towns. Our steps are less than in other towns.
I think I had this conversation, I think last time that Majinski was here, which is obviously a little while ago. But the picking up, fixing how many people, how many times we do overtime, or how many overtime shifts they are, was supposed to get parity on a lot of this. We never did that, right? We couldn't hire, for whatever reason, we couldn't get the people in to cover the overtime. But when you looked at the numbers, again, your statement is probably great, true. But they are making more, equal or more than the other towns.
If you include overtime, they probably are, but if you're just
I just
looking
looked
at base pay.
Yeah, I just looked at like, no, pay and, payout for other town, whatever, the total number divided by like your an officer, a sergeant or whatever. And because I remember asking Majinski this, I said, so that will fix this issue that we're having. So if it's an issue that we're having where we pay so much for overtime, and that's time and a half, how is it, again, I'm not the CEO of the police, but how is it that we can't get people in the door if this is what people are making? I'm just confused on why.
We're not paying hourly as much, and we don't have a educational incentive as high as surrounding towns.
I have no idea what an educational incentive is. Tell me what that
It's
is.
a percentage of your base pay, you get an increase. So we're currently, I think we offer,
If you have such and such level of education.
if you have an associate's, you would get a 3%.
What does that do, though?
Your,
Is that the Quinn
your
bill?
salary is bumped
Oh,
up.
that-
It's
that's
essentially
something.
what has replaced.
What used to be the
Oh,
Quinn bill.
okay.
That's what it was referred to. And we call it Quinn, but there's no match from the state anymore. Used to be that the state would help pay for that, but, so currently, if you are a patrol
So if
officer,
have a
you would get a
master's, you
3%
make this
increase
much more.
on your base
If you
pay.
have a doctorate, you make this much more.
Not a doctorate. But
But you know what I mean.
there's a, say, 3% for an associate's, 6 or 7% for a bachelor's, and 10 or 12% for a master's. And that's low compared to other towns. So we're increasing that, or we're discussing making increases to that to be comparative to other towns. Other towns are closer to, I don't know, 10, 12, and 20 or
So
something.
when we do that, we'll be able to get 6 more guys in there.
We've been as attractive to the other towns, but that doesn't necessarily mean anybody wants to be a cop anymore.
That's my point, of like, what point can we fit? We haven't been able to fill these positions ever since I've been sitting here. And so that's my only, I
So-
understand maybe we pay people a little less, but
So
like
I
on
think-
paper, it actually looks like more. I get it, that there's a difference there because of time that they're spending. But at some point, we have to figure out how to hire
Well,
the
so I
people.
think Scott's point that he's making is the collective bargaining agreement that he is trying to finalize that would include increases that make our base pay and our educational incentives similar or in line with other towns is the first step in trying to do that, or is a step in trying to do that.
It's a big step, too.
And is there a clawback in this new thing? If somebody were to leave within a year?
No. These are employees that have been here for, I mean, we have a few that are coming out of the academy, but there's no clawback.
But our ability to retain officers and recruit has improved.
It's improved without this, and I think it's also improved, we've actually had one officer come back, and we're glad he came back, so, in that, because they're aware of what's going on. I think, we're doing everything, and the chief's doing everything he can to provide, educational or just internal training opportunities, equipment, whatever he can do to make it a good working environment.
I just keep hearing about these open positions every
Yeah.
every year I sit here.
I don't know
And
when it's gonna change.
Again, I'm not in this public sector, so I'm like, I can't figure out how we can't get people, I don't know. Like if I need somebody to work, it's 1 week or 2 weeks or a month, I don't know, but somebody's sitting there in a month.
Yeah.
I understand this is a little more complicated, but I didn't think it was, this has been years, I don't know how long I've been on here, but ever since I've been on here, this is the biggest issue for the police that I see.
Yeah, and it's, by and large, has a lot to do with civil service, the process.
Yeah. Didn't we think about, we never ended up,
It's a warrant article.
all right, great.
It all depends on this.
I mean, man, you really can't get pigeonholed. So,
We're getting there.
yeah, great. That actually might help big time.
It might. I'm hoping.
Other questions or comments or things to bring up on the overall budget?
I guess just what's the next step? So we've got 2 more meetings, and what,
So whether it's by next week or the week after, we have to have voted on recommendations, which means we have to have a recommendation on the budget as a whole. I don't think that this committee will vote to approve a budget that is not balanced, so
I do not intend to put one in
the
front of you.
the next step is for Scott and Andrew to find the places that can balance this budget.
And I think, like I said, I will get, and we can review the warrant a bit anyways, but I will get a clean, should be all updated warrant to you tomorrow, maybe by end of day. I'm hoping to have it earlier. And we can probably vote some of the articles that aren't going to change next week.
Yep.
The capital plan will probably be done. The CPC will be here, and their articles will be done. So you can certainly look and vote on that. Operating may be the final piece of the puzzle, that and maybe the numbers for the union contracts. But we're fairly certain that we have those numbers and ready to plug them in. I think we have one more library to get to. But I'm pretty confident we'll have those. But maybe not next Wednesday, they have everything, but most of it, and then certainly the following Wednesday, whatever's left, you can look at.
And we did review the first pass through the budget, the warrant articles at our last meeting. And there wasn't a lot that was financial.
No, it's mostly the
There's a lot
capital
of-
plan.
So there was a lot of planning stuff, planning, zoning stuff that was not overly financial in nature. So it's not likely to be, and were there any, I think the warrant closed after our last meeting.
Yeah, but I'm
Were
gonna
there any,
open it.
were there any surprise articles that came in by petition or
No,
anything like
nothing
that?
came in
So-
by citizens petition. We are, and I am gonna make a recommendation, I'll post it tomorrow. I'm gonna ask the selectmen to open the town meeting warrant, so I can make some adjustments that I'll tell you about that, and then I'll ask them to close it again, but it's just, there's some minor things, there's a couple things that came up. There's 2 opportunities, one's for grants, or they're actually both for grants. The fire department has the opportunity for a grant to get all new portable radios. And that just came in, but we need to do the town match
Do
for
a
that.
match.
Yeah, so, and it wasn't a big amount. I don't think I brought the new one, I sent it off to Sean. I want to say that
I was gonna ask Andrew to
Did I send
Put
it
the
off to
warrant
you,
up.
Andrew? I
This
don't
is
think
still
I
an
did.
old copy, so.
Yeah, so there was a, I don't think if I actually have it. And then there's also money, and I want to say that one might have been 16,000, but I should be able to pull it up. There was also, the Washington Street project that John Stone was talking about. That needs design money that won't be covered by the grant. So we would need 60,000 plus or minus for design money. So I put that in for an article, and actually, we're hoping, and hoping on both of them, that we can actually run that through our Plymouth County Recovery Plan Act money, but we still have to go to town meeting to use it. Let's see. We are recommending that we remove a couple of the capital items that are in there. There is a 6-wheel dump truck. It's 320,000. I think we had it listed originally at 365. We want to run that through our Plymouth County Recovery Plan Act. And we're gonna, if it doesn't work out, maybe we'll revisit it in the fall. There was also,
Andrew's looking to jump in there.
Yeah, can I just interrupt really quick, just to set the stage? The current capital plan for the general fund is about 2.8 million, and we were certified for 2 million worth of free cash. So we do have to make some cuts. Just so you know where the numbers are.
Yep.
wait, did you say that one more time?
So the current capital plan for the general fund includes 2.8 million worth of expenditures. The state just certified a free cash at about 2 million. So some items from the capital plan will be cut.
At least $800,000 of items in the
Right.
capital plan have to
And-
come out, if not more, to cover things like the grant or stabilization or whatever.
And,
Right.
and it was pretty easy to find those. So the one was the truck, like we said, I think we can probably run that through Recovery Plan Act. We'll at least try it, and if, worst case scenario, we can bring it up in the fall. They put in to replace the Island Grove bathhouses for $300,000, but I do not believe that that's actually a solid estimate, and so we're going to adjust that I can, and I met with the engineers today to try and get just a number on what it would cost to actually put plans and specs together and then get an actual estimate to see how much that would cost. That bathhouse is significant. I don't think it can be done for $100,000. Same thing with the retaining wall for Island Grove. We actually, $100,000, may cover the cost, but we still need, in order to bid it, I actually need engineered plans for that. So we're gonna pop that off of there. And then the school department, we have the ADA ramp for the Frollo School. They came in a lot higher than I expected at 500,000, so we're going to take that off, and we're going to, because it's an accessibility thing, there's actually typically grant money, and I'm gonna ask for some earmarks on that to help out too. And then we'll revisit that one also in the fall, at the fall town meeting. So, we found pretty quickly, close to $900,000 that we can pass out of there. And we'd like to actually have a little bit of a buffer,
Yeah.
so we can, in case anything comes up, and then we can also deal with it in the fall. And we'll have some money left. So you will see those come out. Like I said, the things that'll be popping in will be the 2 requests for some matching money, one for Washington Street for the design, so we can get the $500,000 grant, and then I think it was $16,000 for a $320,000 grant for the portable radios for the fire department. There is, no, I think that's it. I think the only other things that are in there are,
Matt, I had a question.
Yes, Barbara.
Um, the, on the capital plan, the cruisers, we had been on a 2-in-1, 2 cruises one year, 1 cruiser the following year. Can you just remind me why we were doing 3?
My recollection was that we had been on a 2-2-3 with the cruisers. And I know that COVID year, we took cruisers out entirely and didn't purchase
I think we might have
any.
done,
What?
actually, I think we bought, one year we bought them with CARES Act money.
We might have bought them
I
with
don't
CARES
recall.
Act money the next year,
I think we ended up doing that.
so.
And so how many did we do last year?
2. Actually, I think we did 2 in a motorcycle last year, or we did
think
1 in a motorcycle.
There was
maybe.
definitely a motorcycle
Yeah.
somewhere along the way.
All right, thank you.
And, certainly we'll, review this with everybody. I think I had already actually asked the chief that, was it absolutely necessary to have 3 this year? We felt it was, but we can certainly look at it.
Yep.
Okay.
And Scott, what's the time frame on ARPA? That has to be what, encumbered by the end of 2024 and then expended by 26?
Correct.
Okay. So how much do we have left on that?
A lot in the Plymouth County bucket. We're hoping to see about $500,000 of it to go towards our infrastructure improvements. We have an article for that. That will, there's a lot of roads that will do some subsurface improvements to deal with our stormwater and, protect our ponds and rivers and everything else. And as a result of that, we'll also end up paving those roads. So we'll put that through. If that's successful, we might even put another round through at the special town meeting. And again, I mean, there'd probably still be $1 million something left at that point, roughly. We're working with them. The guidelines are fairly strict. We've been pretty unsuccessful.
Everything we've submitted has not yet,
Yeah.
has been rejected or not yet approved.
Yeah.
The total allowance for Plymouth County is $3 million for us, so it's a lot to work with.
Yeah. So we're hoping to work with them. Some of that money, of course, worst case scenario, and it's not worst case, but at the end of the day, if we can allocate more of it to our water, our side of the water department, and any upgrades as we've been doing all along, as far as PFAS remediation and other things that will help with the rate. So that's one thing that we can do with it. Same thing with sewer, if they have to make some upgrades or anything in the future, we can look at that. Like we said, we're looking at maybe taking that 6-wheel dump truck out of there, and, because it is a support vehicle for the sewer department.
And any indication on where the state's gonna wind up or how the towns are gonna look with the new millionaires surtax, the allocations, additional allocations for transportation and education?
No, I don't even know that the state knows yet.
That won't,
Okay.
Yeah, we wouldn't
that
see it
won't
for a while.
really be seen until what, next?
Yeah, we
fiscal
wouldn't
year?
see it. Yeah, we won't see anything this fiscal year, so
So next, yeah, okay.
hopefully, hopefully between the sports book and that, we'll see, at the very least, I'm sure we'll see some increases in Chapter 90, but Chapter 90 came in flat, same as it was last year. There was no increase in that. We're hoping, we have the Memorial Bridge project that we're working on, and we're trying to get earmarks for that and get some money from CPC, but, we're hoping some money will come down to deal with some of these infrastructure. John has been pretty good. He did get some grant money to do, the 2 Center and Central Street bridges. Hopefully that'll keep coming in, and hopefully we'll see a big boost on it. There was money in, the state had Recovery Plan Act money that they were looking to dole out as the governor's Governor Baker's final budget, that didn't go through. It didn't pass in time before the legislature had closed session. So what the new governor will do with that money, nobody knows. Hopefully, she'll pick up some of those programs. There was about $300,000 that was allocated towards downtown improvements, and that for Abington alone. So I'm hoping that somehow that resurfaces, because that will go a long way. We did receive in this year, we just recently received notice of a $100,000 earmark that we're actually using towards some of those projects that the planning department wants done. So, we'll just keep hoping that stuff like that keeps coming down the pike, because it is very helpful when it does happen.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on capital? Andrew, do you want to scroll to the next?
Oh, no, just, on that ramp at the Frollo, that's not a compliance issue, it's like,
No, the building's grandfathered. I mean, it's
Okay.
been there for a long time. We'd like to see it. A lot of people use it.
New Deal.
What's it?
That's
Was that when they built it?
part of the New Deal.
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's such a great building, and so many people want to use it and like to use it.
So we're not at any risk of, if we don't do it this year?
No, I think the fact is, though, I think it makes us really likely to get some grant money that can go towards it. But I was surprised. I mean, we could certainly, the ramp is a nice looking ramp. It fits in with the building. It's got a brick facade, so it's not looking, it's not me and my old company slapping up some pressure treated ramp. This is actually,
It's a big ramp.
It's very long. It's got quite a rise, but it'll fit in nice with the building and the architecture of the building. But yeah, it's important. We do need it. It would be nice to have it.
Okay.
Because they play pickleball in the gym.
All right. Community preservation, we will meet with next week.
Yep, and I did hand out for your information for next week.
I didn't know if there was any sugar free.
We're going to move the inventory.
Thank you.
But they did vote last night, so that's, although it's not on the agenda, it is there, and
Yep. So then, student
We'll have that filled in.
transportation is normal, typical.
Yep.
yeah, that wasn't a huge increase, I don't think.
Yeah, it was usually 14,000 something, so less than $2,000 increase. Health imperatives is normal. Arkansas Shore is normal. Year after year. Purchase of vacant land off Central Street. This is
It's that piece of land that's
In
right next to the
in
police
relation to
station.
the police station.
Yeah, it's just
and
to the-
DPW complex
Yep.
there.
Right.
Do we?
We,
Do we have it?
so I made an offer of 165 to the gentleman that owns it. He was, hopefully, it went through KP Law. He had not responded as of last Friday, so I'm not sure. So our next steps is I'll hire an appraiser to go out there and do an actual appraisal of it. But yeah, we're going to purchase that property.
What property?
It's, if you're facing the police station, there's a vacant lot
Oh,
just
yeah.
to the, it's all like overgrown.
Roadway infrastructure projects, what's this one?
Yeah, that's the one I was just mentioning that,
Okay, yep.
basically we have underground structures and that have to be repaired and, just to make sure that the roads are pitched properly and that our water runoff, stormwater maintenance, all that MS4 stuff is done right. So we'll do all of these roads and then obviously we're gonna have to repave them when we're done.
Where is that money coming from?
That is, we're running through the Plymouth County Recovery Plan Act. And that money, because it is related to infrastructure improvements, it is eligible.
It qualifies.
It qualifies.
It will not be rejected like everything else.
It should not be rejected, but I don't know if it's Andrew and I's personality that they don't like, or,
I think it's spending money that they don't like.
well, they've got it and they've allocated it, and they're following the strict guidelines. They are meeting, when I say that, the Plymouth County Commissioners are meeting and they are having discussions on easing up some restrictions on a certain percentage of that. I think, was it maybe $300,000-$400,000 or something?
We don't know yet.
Yeah, and then they're also maybe gonna add another category that will allow us to use it for some sort of transportation, so maybe that includes trucks and buses. I'm not really sure, they're not sure yet, but, we did have a discussion with them. They told me that it's their money and it's their rules, and I should stop complaining about it.
That was nice of them.
Yeah.
Pleasant.
We were in a different county, we'd just be able to spend the money ourselves.
But
So
because,
different counties are handling that differently.
well, because it's a functioning county, a non-functioning county, one that doesn't have a county form of government, the money would have just been allocated directly to the town.
Yeah. So, okay. Accepting Marshfield into the South Shore Vocational Technical District.
If you're interested, Tom Hickey, I think he probably touched on this a little bit, but he is going to come
did,
to
yes.
the selectmen meeting, and obviously he'll be at town meeting. But he is going to come to the selectmen meeting, I think at the end of March, to specifically discuss that a little bit more. I know, some folks probably have a concern. I think he had talked about like sort of, what does that do with the amount of people that can go there from our town, and how does it affect us? So we'll just get some more answers on that, but, overall, I think it probably decreases our assessment at some point.
Probably won't change it very much.
In the beginning, I don't think so, and then since they're gonna build a new building, it's probably not gonna matter.
If they build the new building, it could, so if I remember correctly from him talking about it, building a new building could change their overall capacity, and if they add capacity, if Marshfield goes along the lines of the towns that are similar to Marshfield, where their student total attending the VOTEC is lower than what their actual allocation would be, it would free up more spaces for Abington students. But until that time, that they have a new building with a higher capacity, if the new building even has a higher capacity, it would at least potentially slightly decrease the number of Abington students that could enroll there. So, but there isn't expected to be a huge influx of Marshfield students.
Well, I think there are already students from Marshfield that are going, right?
There may be, I think the last couple of years, there haven't been out-of-district school placements.
No.
Because they've had,
Because they have a waiting
they've
list.
had a waiting list from in-district, but.
Again, he'll be at the selectmen meeting if you guys are looking for another night out of fun.
Is it like bargaining with that, or is it just like a legal thing?
Is there bargaining with it? Well, it's
Yeah,
a
like
town meeting article.
With
so-
accepting Marshfield in,
Yeah, no, I just mean like,
it's,
put in there, like, accept Marshfield in, and in return, we get a new dump truck. Or we get, you know what I mean, like throwing something else in there.
I
Like
might get them
maybe-
to build me a new table, but we're gonna do that.
I think Greg is saying quid pro quo from Marshfield for letting them in.
Well, if they built a new,
Work for the
then they would
community.
charge everybody for the new dump truck, because every town's gonna get it. And then we're gonna hit the assessment on the
And I
capital.
think what.
No, no, I'm saying Marshfield pays us.
Oh, Marshfield buys us a
Yeah,
dump
no,
truck?
no, what Greg is saying
Give us one of
is,
their old salty
we
ones.
say to Marshfield, hey, we'll vote for you to join the school if you give us,
Can we make it a?
which is extremely
Motion
legal.
that Greg is our liaison to this project?
what I'm proposing is not illegal, so if it is, then I
don't
apologize.
pretty illegal.
I don't know if it follows municipal law. I'll put it that way.
I could run it by Greg Corbo, but I'm pretty sure.
I would actually like to
I mean,
hear
this
Greg's
isn't-
response to that.
Yeah, this is straightforward for me. We need
very-
stuff.
very
You want to
diff-
do
It's
this?
very different in the business world.
Okay.
In the municipal business world anyways.
All right. Union contracts
To be continued.
to be continued. What do we have? Do we have actual agreements on any of them yet?
Actually, we do with fire. We do have a signed agreement, a
Signed
signed
agreement
MOA
with
with
fire.
fire. We're
We're
not really,
hopefully close with police. Where are we at with
really
library?
close with library too.
Close with library,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, we'll definitely have, I'd be very surprised if we didn't have all three.
All
But
three, good.
I'm pretty certain we'll have police, I mean, we know we have fire now, library definitely by the end of the next week. I'm pretty confident. And then police, I'm hoping any day now.
All right. Veteran property tax work-off. We talked about that earlier when we talked about the
Overlay, yeah.
budget deficit stuff. So that's similar to the senior abatement program, senior work-off program. Allows veterans to work off their tax debt and tax requirements. Minimum impact to the town, but big impact to the veterans in question. Local option to establish designated safety zones. Is this where we get into the, oh no, this isn't a planning article.
No,
Yeah.
that is
What's the
just,
safety zone?
that allows the Board of Selectmen that if they, if
Oh,
there's
this
a,
was
they can reduce the speed limit
reducing the speed limits.
without
Greg-
petitioning Mass Highway.
Greg's
or Mass
petition
Dot,
was to raise the speed
raise the
limits.
speed limit.
Yes. Yeah, I mean,
Duly noted.
we have speed limits from 1960, and the cars have obviously progressed a lot.
Technology
The houses
is-
got to be a little bit closer and more, so that might be the offset to that,
I
though.
don't know.
I think it depends on the street.
Yeah, some of them are wider than others.
I went to New Hampshire the other day, it's like 75 miles an hour. That's normal.
Is it legal?
Yeah, whatever. Not
That's
not
what
on
the
like
speed-
side streets.
That's what the speed limit is.
Speed limit.
Is
Oh.
what he's saying.
Speed limit in
Not
New
he
Hampshire
was
is like
driving
70 or something.
75. I don't think we want on camera to get into what Greg may or may not have been driving.
Well,
So,
It's just interesting that you go, it's interesting you go one state away, and it's a pretty big difference. Just even side roads are a little faster. I don't know. Maybe we have it right, maybe they don't. I don't know.
I'll point out New Hampshire's motto is "Live free or die."
Exactly.
Dying is at least implied.
it's in there, it's right in the model.
So who knows?
We're all gonna do it.
Statistically speaking.
Hopefully, we won't all do it driving. Anyway, that takes us forward into planning articles. The planning articles, we can definitely go over next week, but I don't think there were.
Yeah, and actually, they're
Big-
withdrawing some of them.
Yeah, they,
Yeah.
there's usually fluctuation with the planning articles of what is in and isn't in. I know when we went through them before, there was not a lot that looked like it had direct financial impact, so there wasn't a lot that we needed to, for the most part, we could defer to planning and not provide our own recommendation, but
Yeah, I think a lot of them.
is there anything after those, Andrew?
The very last one is motion to place a preservation restriction on the Island Grove Bridge. And there's a lot more language to it than that. It just will show up on the next version, but Greg Corbo put about a paragraph
I was
after
gonna
that.
say, that sounds like something that would
Yeah.
need language.
And the reason behind that is, again, is we're seeking, it's about $1 million project. And we're seeking grants, as much grant money as we can in earmarks. But a lot of that grant money through like the Mass Historical Commission, it does require us to put some sort of a preservation restriction. And when you see the full language, it'll kind of explain a little bit more about what that restriction means. But it is in desperate need of some TLC, so I really want to get that done.
Definitely. That's
And the
been,
entire project's just $1 million.
Just? That seems odd,
I don't know,
coming from you.
I agree, I thought we talked about bigger numbers for this Island Grove Bridge. Is there another bridge?
Well, there's the Central Street Bridge and the Central Street Bridge.
we've talked about,
There's a lot of bridges.
we've
over
talked
there.
in the past about the Island Grove Bridge being essentially more money than, like, that one of the original pushes behind adopting the Community Preservation Act was the Island Grove Bridge.
Really?
And we would have to save up for many years without doing anything above the bare minimum on community preservation to retain enough money to actually do something about the Island Grove Bridge.
Maybe we could
With
borrow
community
and
preservation.
pay for it
So,
with CPC money too.
So-
I mean, there are options, but grant money and earmarks is what we're eyeballing first.
so,
Sure. But yeah, that was our estimate. We actually, I think we used money from CPC last year to get the estimate, or was it the?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. I think we've spent maybe
Sometime
$10,000. to
sometime
get an
recently.
estimate.
I feel like 80,000 was what we spent on
Was
the
it that?
estimate.
Yeah, could be. It's probably closer.
Anyway, and that's the end of the warrant? Is that the end of the warrant?
That is the end of the warrant. Like I
What-
said, there's
Like you
a-
said, you're gonna add something to it.
There's the couple of articles for the matches for
Yep.
the radios, and then for design for that, for the roadway. And then, like I said, we're gonna actually delete a few things. Did we give them the snow and ice deficit number yet?
The
No.
the invoices from last week still aren't paid, so it's still too early to say.
Hard.
But it's not as bad as other years,
No, no, it is not.
Why do we keep saying that?
because it's not.
Just the year's not over.
That's a fair point. It was,
I
it
look at
was,
the 30-day
it was,
forecast
it was,
every
it was
day.
extremely lightly snowing when I walked in, so
In June, I'd love to.
there is always that. All right. Any other things on the warrant from anyone? I don't think that providing our recommendations will be that difficult outside of the budget and the capital plan, so. Next item is,
But will we have a balanced budget next week?
that's a question for Scott, and he
No,
was not
I
100%
don't- I think
sure.
it'll be a lot closer, but I don't think so. I think, I'd like to say yeah, but I think only because Andrew's gonna be out part of next week and the early part of the week, and Felicia's just getting back. So I think it's probably more likely that you'll see it the following
So what
week.
you're saying is that Andrew and Felicia have to work a lot of overtime tomorrow.
Well, I
and
need those two to work together, but
Friday. A lot of overtime tomorrow on
Well,
Friday.
Felicia's gone. She's on vacation,
Yeah.
so I specifically said we shouldn't bother her. But I need to have that conversation with her, and we need to have a conversation with the other departments. So to say that I'm gonna wrap it up between now and, Tuesday of next week's not likely to happen. I'll have news. But I think more likely, we'll go through the CPC. We'll have a lot of the other numbers for you.
So we'll get to provide more feedback on the things that
Yeah.
we
And-
prefer to keep in or take out.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the
next
other
week.
question too. Is there anybody that, other than CPC, that you want to see here and talk to? Is there further clarification that you want from any of the other departments, whether it's via email or their presence?
Anyone have anyone specific? We can,
Yeah, and if there's something,
we
obviously.
can email through the week to see if there's anybody that we want to bring back. But we do have until 2 weeks from tonight to provide our final
And each and every one of them
recommendations, so.
would have no problem with any one of you calling them either.
Yep.
They totally always say that, so.
Yep. And I will point out for those watching or those new, we have to provide printed recommendation, or we have to provide recommendations on each of the warrant articles so that they can be printed with the warrant. We have to provide them by, is it 10 days prior to town meeting?
We need to get it to the town clerk on the 23rd, so
Yep.
it's gotta be published on the 23rd.
Yep. So,
Which means.
by our meeting 2 weeks from tonight, we need to have voted on some form of a motion, whether it's to approve, pass over, or defer on each of the articles. That, however, does not prevent us from reopening our recommendation and changing it and presenting a different recommendation on the floor of town meeting.
I don't think that's happened before.
It has definitely happened generally with union contracts, because those usually come in at the last possible minute, so. All right. Reviewing meeting minutes for January 11th is our next agenda item. Scott? Something
I
else?
know it's not an actual agenda item, but I do think that we either make it one for next week or the following week or whatever, but we should have that discussion on, and probably a vote on exactly what we expect out of the minutes. So Kelly knows exactly, going forward, what we all want. And I did send her a copy of the open meeting law guidelines, and actually, I know you have them.
Right.
But I'm not sure that everybody else has them, so maybe if I get that out, specifically with that section, we can have a quick discussion on it, so everybody's comfortable, and Kelly's comfortable.
Yep, I
That
agree.
she's providing what we all need, or what you all want to see.
Yep,
That's all I get to say about that.
I agree. I think we should have that discussion next week.
Yep. Yeah, so Kelly, can you make sure that's on the agenda?
Yep, I will.
Kelly.
No problem.
So with that said, meeting minutes for January 11th. Let me call that back up on my computer. January 11th, present at the meeting, we had Andrew, myself, Paul, and Sarah. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4. That's not enough. So we will not review the January 11th meeting minutes tonight, because we do not have a quorum of people who can vote on them. Let's see about January 25th. What the heck is that?
Looks like we're
I
gonna
opened
be short
the wrong-
again.
I opened the wrong file. Let's see, Barbara, myself, Paul, and Sarah. That is 4 once again. So we cannot vote on the January 25th meeting minutes. And then February 1st meeting minutes. We had myself, Sarah, Barbara, Paul, and Andrew. We have 5 who can vote on the meeting minutes. So we can go over the February 1st meeting minutes.
Matt, I don't think you technically need a quorum of the members present to approve the minutes. I just think you need the board quorum.
Because I know that we've skipped them.
Not 100%, but-
We've skipped them before because of not
Yeah.
having enough people to vote on them.
Scott, do you know the answer to that?
I believe you have to have a quorum to take any votes.
You need a quorum of the people that were present. I think
Okay.
you only need a quorum,
Okay. Then let's go back to January 11th.
but we can get clarification on that from, council if you like.
It's the same thing as the
If we get-
letting Marshfield in.
If we get clarification, and the clarification is that our vote does not stand, then we'll just have to
Redo
revote,
it.
so. So the January 11th meeting minutes. had some notes that I had sent to Dan. I think Andrew's last name was wrong in the motion to adjourn. There was a Y added to the end of it. So if we could amend the meeting minutes to spell Andrew's name correctly on that one.
I'll second that.
Want to approve?
I have a motion to approve from Greg. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Andrew. Any discussion on the meeting minutes from January 11th?
We just need to make a notation on what documents were included as part of the meeting. There's no reference there to any of the documents. We just need to include that. Not that we have to attach them, we just need to identify them.
Kelly, is that something that you can add?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
So that'll be part of the amended meeting minutes that we will
Yeah.
vote on. So
Do I have
fixing
to say
Andrew,
that 3 times?
fixing
Because-
Leverall T to Leveralt and identifying the attachments,
Yeah, yeah.
or what the attachments were.
Sorry, Andrew.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions on the January 11th meeting minutes?
Nope.
Without any, all those in favor of approving the January 11th meeting minutes? You can't vote.
Right.
You weren't there.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Barbara and Greg, feel free to abstain. I told him he could. I told him he couldn't say aye. All right, so the January 11th meeting minutes are approved. January 25th. For that one, Greg also was not there. Andrew, you were not there at that one, so when we get to voting, don't be Greg and try to vote for it. Is there a motion for the January 25th meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the January 25th meeting minutes.
Motion from Andrew, is there a second?
A second.
Second from Sarah. Is there any commentary on the January 25th meeting minutes?
I just repeat, we just need to include the documents or exhibits.
Yep. And
Can you make note?
question that I had, and this goes a little bit to the debate that we had over the content of the minutes, but I think this one is more, I think this one I'm pretty sure we should go with what my recommendation was in the vote about the discussion. There was a vote, and we had, let me see. Yes, the vote for the review of the January 4th meeting minutes. It listed who opposed and who abstained. I think we just list the vote and the totals. I don't think we list the names of the people.
Yeah, I think only if they ask to be noted.
Yeah. So Kelly, could you amend that section? It's 2C in the notes.
Yep.
Thanks.
And can I just, the library 2E, the liaison reports library celebration information, was that noted in this meeting and then the following meeting? Because it shows up in both of them.
I think it probably was. I think
Okay.
I think the celebration was after the following meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think if I remember correctly, the celebration was like February 5th. It was on a Sunday in February, so it would have been in both meetings, I think.
So it wouldn't have been on February 8th.
We were really pushing it.
Because it was the 5th, it shows up in the 8th. That's the only reason I'm bringing it up.
The February 8th minutes?
Yeah,
No, it wouldn't have been on the 8th.
okay.
So,
Oops, sorry.
that's okay. So we're good on the 25th. Any other comments on the meeting minutes from January 25th?
Nope.
Okay, as such, all those in favor of approving the meeting minutes for January 25th, say aye.
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 Andrew, you can't vote on them. All those opposed? All those abstaining? That's you, Greg. All right, that's the February 25th meeting minutes, which brings us to the February 1st meeting minutes. Let's see, Greg, you were not at that meeting as well. You were at the meeting, a meeting in between, but you were not at that one. And you showed up twice when we didn't have meetings. So you get bonus points for that.
You get to stay on.
Is there a motion for the February 1st meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Andrew, seconded by Sarah. Sarah was just a hair too slow on the original motion to get in there. Is there any discussion on the meeting minutes? Questions, comments?
Yeah, we don't have, I mean, as much as I want these to be brief, there's really nothing here. Like, and it says, Chief Del Papa goes over budget. I don't think that passes the smell test for open meeting, because there's nothing here. You know, when you go look at prior meetings, it's like, that's what we say, Mr. Lambiase goes over budget. Chief Del Papa goes over budget. It's like, I mean, it does say that you're supposed to have some summary. We don't have anything, and it's like, I want to be brief, but that's taking it to an extreme.
Trying to find.
I'll make a motion to table the vote on the meeting minutes until we've had a chance to discuss the format of the meeting minutes.
So we would have to retract the first motion
I'll retract my first motion.
and the second.
Make a motion to table.
I'll retract my second.
All right, so you have a motion to table the discussion on further meeting minutes until we have our discussion next week to go over the format of the meeting minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Paul seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion to table? Without any, all those in favor of tabling the minutes for February 1st? Say aye.
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 All those opposed? Abstaining? You don't have to abstain.
I wasn't there.
All right, we have tabled the meeting minutes for February 1st. Looking at.
Can I just ask, as far as, can we, all right, I'll wait till next week. But just as far as getting the meeting minutes on the town website, because I don't think they've been out there. It's been quite a while since.
I know that Daniel had talked about working with Tony in the office about getting them on there. I don't know where that has been at, but
Okay.
that's something that we definitely should be doing, so.
Yeah, I mean, it just, once you approve them, we'll have Kelly send them over.
Yep.
We won't wait for Dan, we just have Kelly send them
Yep.
over to Tony and,
That
she
works.
can get them up there.
Yep. All right, moving on to the next agenda item. I already gave us a spoiler on this. There is no correspondence this week. I know everyone is upset about that. Greg upset the most, but, you know, he's so upset that he had to leave. Next item is liaison reports. Are there liaison reports? Andrew or Barbara, any liaison reports?
Nope.
No, nothing, Matt.
Just a quick sort of ish liaison report. The high school's spring play starts tomorrow night. It is tomorrow night, Friday night, and Saturday. They are doing Stephen King's Carrie, the musical.
Okay.
I didn't happen to know anybody was in that.
I do happen to know the young lady who is playing Carrie herself, the one Rebecca
Would
saw.
that be the star?
It would be the lead of the play. I would not necessarily use
They don't do that
star,
anymore?
even though she uses that term for herself on the Abington Cam podcast that she does. But the play is tomorrow and Friday at 7 o'clock each night, and then Saturday a matinee at 2 o'clock. It is a very provocative show, I think would be a good word for it, and
It's a musical.
it's definitely going to be a interesting production that is well worth your time going to see. So,
It's amazing what they can do. It really is outstanding.
so yeah, the department does an excellent job.
Yeah, Steve Shannon, big shout out to Steve Shannon. He's outstanding directing that.
What department is it?
School department, but the drama department within the
Drama
school
department.
department.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it was amazing what they used to do when they were at the Frollo. Now we're at the high school with the auditorium. It's just taken up a whole another level. It's just, kids are great and Steve's outstanding.
yep.
Awesome.
So, any other reports? So as we discussed, our next meeting is next Wednesday, March 15th. We will then also meet Wednesday, March 22nd, and make sure that we have recommendations on everything by that meeting. Any questions or comments regarding future meetings? Any other questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to adjourn?
I have a motion to adjourn from Greg,
Second?
seconded by Paul. Any discussion? Without any discussion, all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Nope, Greg didn't abstain this time, so we are adjourned.